everyone. Before we get into the episode, just wanted to give you a quick update. Cuberviews is taking a little break for the rest of December, so I can enjoy the holidays and recharge a little bit. Thank you all so much for listening and supporting the show this year. I hope you have an amazing holiday season, and I'll see you in the new year with more great Cube conversations. Enjoy. Hey everyone, welcome to Cuberviews episode 48. This is your host, Ian Braverman. I hope you're having a great day. Today I'm joined by Dan Schneider. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here.
Of course, I'm excited to have you on. It's always fun to see you at Cube events. Like you were on a previous bonus episode that I did. It was fun seeing you at Cube for a Cause. I drafted the Cube we're going to be talking about today, the Perilous Seas there. Had a blast. You're always fun to talk to. Yeah. How did you like Cube for a Cause?
I love the Cube for a Cause events. I think, as many people have said, those Cube events where you can kind of go home and wake up in your own bed are extra special, fun, and the fact that we are doing them in support of causes that are curated by Scott Mertz, who organizes the events, has really been a wonderful experience. I've participated in all of the Cubes for a Cause so far. I have had cubes in all of the Cubes for a Cause so far. Absolutely fantastic event.
Yeah, I mean, you've also had cubes at CubeCon, like the Devoid Cube. The Devoid Cube is always a cube that I've wanted to play because it just looks so interesting to me. But just somehow I haven't been put in the pods or just I haven't been able to play it. I want to do that so bad at some point too.
Yeah, it will end up at other events, I have no doubt. I think it is definitely one of the weirder cubes on the spectrum, and so opportunities will certainly arise.
Yeah. And I was looking, you're also the curator of the Evergreen Peasant Cube. I hadn't
Yeah,
seen that
yeah.
cube before. I love peasant cubes. It was the first kind of cube I made. Tell me
Hmm.
about your history with cube design, magic. What was your first cube you made?
Yeah, absolutely. So Magic is a very old story. I started playing Magic in Onslaught. I took some time off during college and towards the end of high school, and really have been playing pretty consistently since the first Zendikar set. Been cubing since around then. The very first cube I built was a truly miserable peasant list, where in the first draft of the cube, every match came down to decking because the cube was just mono uncommon 2-for-1s. My first advice to fellow designers is don't do that. But like we immediately after that draft, I remember like going through a friend's like reject rare pile and just like putting in rare 6 drops that could end games so that things didn't come down to decking. So I maintained a vintage cube for a while when I lived in Chicago until about the time that Battle for Zendikar and Oath of the Gatewatch came out, which is when I had the inspiration for the Devoid Cube, which is definitely the most well-known and longest storied of the projects that I've been working on. It's been at 3 CubeCons, it's been at Boston Cube Party, it's been at Cube for a Cause, and since then very much kind of a purveyor of weird cubes.
Yeah, I feel like it was one of the first color restricted, I guess, no color cube, color restricted cubes I'd seen. Yeah, so tell me about some of your other hobbies outside of magic too.
Yeah, so unfortunately, very little at this point. I have a 2-year-old daughter, so most of the discretionary time that I have tends to be spent with her and my wife. And so Magic and Cube are sort of most of the hobbies I have time for. It used to be a little bit more travel, a little bit more gaming and things like that. But at this point, in terms of, more formal hobbies, it's pretty much down to Magic because that's what my schedule can allow for.
What's your favorite place you ever traveled to?
Nice in France.
Ooh.
My wife and I took a very lovely trip where we went from Milan to Nice to Paris, and Nice was really just an incredible, lovely place. Like it's the type of place that like every once in a while I daydream and I look up like what does a studio apartment in Nice cost if we wanted to do that. I look forward to a time and an age for my daughter when we can go back and enjoy that again because it was really a beautiful space to be in.
I love traveling too. I was in Paris for a day and a half. I went to Spain and then it was like the layover between there and London.
Oh, sure.
And I went with my friend and we biked all around Paris, but unfortunately it was pouring rain. So it was
No.
probably the most dangerous and silly thing I've ever done, but it was also beautiful
Yeah.
because the
Amazing.
driver's there in the rain. It's a little scary.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And So, another thing before we get into today's episode, ConnectiCube is going to be happening Saturday, February 28th and Sunday, March 1st. It's going to be a 64-person cube event outside of Hartford, Connecticut. The Discord is going to be in the description. I hope you can make it, Dan.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I think that might be right back to back with the next Cube for a Cause. Essentially, my wife and I have worked out an arrangement where I get one weekend away to play Magic cards a quarter, and I'm going to be cashing one of those in early to go to Shoebox, the event in Minneapolis. That'll be happening, I think, mid-March, early March of 2026. I'm very excited about Shoebox. So I may make some hard decisions about what my February looks like to enable that. So we'll see. But I would love to be there if my scheduling allows.
There's so many cube events now. It's like you can pick between them. This one's only 20 minutes for me. This one's a couple hours.
Yeah, absolutely tremendous luck to have so many wonderful options. If you are planning cube events, plan them on the Amtrak in the Northeast. There is a healthy contingent of road warriors who are going to Philly, to Baltimore, to DC, to Boston, to New York to play Cube in all of these events. And we're absolutely blessed to have had so many new ones popping up in the last year and a half between Cube for a Clause, Saltbox, Boston Cube Party, Capital Cube Champs, now ConnectiCube. It's really a huge boon for people like me who play a lot of Cube, really love Cube, and also have some of that itch of having played, a little bit more seriously, a little bit more in kind of competitive 60 card formats in the past. And so having that outlet for competition can be very fun.
Were you a competitive grinder?
No, I sort of maxed out at F&M and Boss. I've been to a couple of SCG events that I've scrubbed out of. I primarily played Legacy. I was a dredge player.
Ooh, Manaless
So
Dread?
no, traditional playing Cities of Brass and Cephalid Coliseums and all that good stuff. Back when all that was still a deck that you could play. And Legacy was a thing because Star City was supporting it.
Back when Legacy was kind of affordable, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, Dredge was always kind of like the one of the cheapest decks
That's
in the
true.
format, and then LEDs kept going up, and then it sort of was on par with the rest of the format. But there was a period of time where it was like every deck has their card that is a four of $100 card. It
Yep.
might be the duels, it might be an LED, it might be a City of Traders, it might be, all of these other things. But at the end of the day, it was like the budget decks all have one card that's obscenely expensive and everything else is pretty cheap. And for Dredge, that was LEDs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now, speaking of the complete opposite of SEC grinding, the Perilous Seas, which is a totally
Yeah.
vibes, Pirates of the Caribbean, oceans, crabs everywhere. Tell us a little about the cues we're talking about today.
Yeah. So the Perilous Seas is a cube that I designed kind of back in the spring of this year. I describe it as having Pirates of the Caribbean vibes. So a lot of
Zach Barish
focus on
always does the
pirates.
song whenever he's there.
He does. And for the first draft, I did too. So I just took out my phone and I found a YouTube video that was 1 hour loop of the Pirates of the Caribbean theme. I did this primarily because one of our other locals, his name is Noah, he actually has a cube in CubeCon this year, the Sea and Sky Cube. For the first draft as his cube, he brought a Sonos soundbar and just played ASMR waves, just kind
Wow.
of wave crashing. So I felt like I had to kind of bring that audio experience as well, given that he sort of got his cube to the table first and really set a high bar. There are a couple of things that came together for the idea for this cube. The first, I feel like every year there's some new invention in the cube zeitgeist, often coming out of some of the most successful, surprising, fun cubes that get played at big events like CubeCon. And I think coming out of CubeCon 2024, I'd say the breakout of that experience was the Fire Swamp. So this is designed by someone named Brett. It is a Jund semi-desert cube based on the vibes of the Princess Bride. I had sort of had a inkling of this idea of kind of pushing in a vibes forward direction of not necessarily thinking about mechanics first, not necessarily thinking about the power level or kind of individual card choices, but really starting from this place of how do you make someone have an emotional experience with Q was something that was really, really interesting for me. Obviously, I'd played around in semi-desert spaces with the Devoid Cube, but I had sort of had it on my radar that like I knew I wanted to be designing some kind of vibes cube, and I knew that I wanted to be designing a full desert cube because that was an area that I hadn't built before and wanted to. And so those were things that were sort of going on in the back of my mind. When I am sick, I tend to watch big movie franchises to pass the time. So like if I know I'm going to be sick all day, like I'm starting Lord of the Rings extended edition at 9 a.m. and I'm watching until everything is done. It's just like this thing that I do to pass the time when I know I'm not feeling well. And so I had a period a bit earlier this year where I was not feeling my best, and I started watching kind of the Pirates of the Caribbean series. And that sort of triggered this thought, like, oh, I wonder if there's sort of enough pirates to make a pirate themed cube. And it really sort of like took off from there.
That's awesome. I love the quote that you have on your cube outline. Ye come seeking adventure and salty old pirates, eh? Sure, you come to the proper place, but keep a weather eye open and hold on tight. You're off the edge of the map, mate. Here there be monsters. It be too late to alter course, mateys. And mark well me words. Dead men tell no tales. I
Yeah,
was looking
it's a
that up. That's the intro narration to the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disneyland.
yeah, it's a mashup of some of the parts of the Pirates of the Caribbean intro, as well as some like iconic quotes from the movie franchise. Like, "You're off the edge of the map, mate. Here there be monsters," is a quote from the film franchise rather than the opening narration. But my wife has family in California. We tend to go out there for the holidays, and we tend to go to Disney while we're there. So, like, I have heard the talking skull at the beginning of this ride kind of do that narration for a while. It sets the tone for the experience that the rider's going to have. And I thought it would be kind of a nice way to set the tone for the experience that someone would be having drafting this cube.
Absolutely. Now, when are we going to get the Pirates of the Caribbean secret lair? Is the question.
I mean, I assume everything is on the table. They obviously, at the time of recording, we just found out about the Jaws secret lair. So we have some nautical themes coming in there. We're already doing Marvel stuff, so to me, just a matter of time, given we're already crossing over with the House of the Mouse. Got to be developing those connections, and it'll be a race to see whether it gets into Magic or Lorcana first.
We're already getting Dwight on a card, so might as well get
Yeah,
Johnny Depp.
yeah, completely agree.
Definitely. And I love desert cubes. I've done multiple desert cubes, like my friend Sam from the first episode. He has his Circle of Life desert cube. I played Bones's desert cubes. I played semi desert cubes like Parker's Noir cube. They're so fun. And it felt like this cube just really feels like a perfect desert cube to be a desert cube because it's funny because this is an ocean, so the opposite of a desert. But at the same time, it's like you're seeing all these lands and it feels like it's creating a landscape. Like there are different lands in the cubes that like give you the vibe. Like, for example, contaminated aquifer, shipwreck marsh. It really makes you feel like you're going into the ocean. Can you tell me about the different things that you did to really make this cube feel vibes like that you're going to an
Yeah,
ocean?
absolutely. I mean, I think for me, one of the things that was like most interesting about this cube was really finding aesthetic components that felt authentic to it and like resonated with me as I was creating this. And so, like, normally for me, when I design, I have a very mechanically focused design process. I have ideas of cards or themes that I want to explore. I will delve, into adjacent cards, think about how these things overlap, create webs and networks and, pockets of synergies and whatever. But I'm really coming at it from the oracle text of cards and how they interact with the other things. For me, this was like the same process, but totally flipped to focus exclusively on aesthetics, right? So really making use of art tags and Scryfall to find ships, body of waters, etc. Looking into sort of specific words that I saw like wizards card namers like to use. Like the word drowned was something that like came up a lot and actually had like a lot of value to it. Really kind of like instead of taking these mechanical threads that I would normally go through, it was really taking and pulling at aesthetic threads related to card name, card art, kind of first and foremost, to sort of generate that long list of cards from which I would eventually kind of cut down, as well as to use that long list of cards to identify what are themes that are emergent and, what are cards that maybe aren't 100% vibes, but could help fit mechanically with some of those things to sort of round off any hard edges.
It's a really interesting thing that you're saying because this cube definitely includes a lot of themes that feel very ocean and like vibes focused, like pirates, merfolk, spirits, horrors, things like that, like creature types, in addition to other themes that feel very like ocean and pirates themes, like the graveyard, like things, pirate ships floating to the bottom of the ocean and like artifacts, buried treasure. But it's really cool what you're saying also of just not only the card choices themselves and what the cards do, but also just the names of them too. Like it's totally true. Like when you have a card like that has the word drown in it, or the card that says ocean, or the card that says the seas, or something like that, it just subconsciously puts you into the mindset.
Yeah, I think like one of the things that's really interesting, it's no longer represented in Cube, but I'm a huge Reanimator stan. And obviously, so the first version of this cube, the sort of sea monster Reanimator was sort of one of the initial archetypes. So looking at all those things that tended to care about leviathans, octopuses, krakens, and serpents, which is sort of a batch that Wizards has looked at. Even doing that, one of the things that was really important to me was to one, manage power level, and two, manage the aesthetic. So I looked for reanimation cards that were named in a way that would be resonant for the experience. So I wasn't considering Animate Dead or Necromancy or Zombify or anything that had like a clear bent toward necromancy as like the origin of it. But like there's Rise Upon the Tide from Kaldheim is a foretell reanimation spell. Rise Again, the art on it is certainly a zombie, breaking ground. But these idea of like there are scary things that live in the sunken depths, and we are using magic, using whatever to pull them up and sort of like rest them from their slumber. Like that was to the level of the way that I was thinking about kind of aesthetics of the cube. Are there enough reanimation spells that still kind of feel and look appropriate while also kind of like not wildly skewing the power level? So most of those have been cut. I think I still have Dread Return in there, and I have Extract from Darkness in there, which are both, fine and interesting. But just like that idea of really going deep on blending aesthetics was like an important part of the way that I was thinking about it.
Yeah, and speaking of reanimation, when I had a chance to draft this cube, I first picked Gyruda. I love
Oh,
Gyruda. It's one of my Korea, one of the companions, and you pay 3 to put in your hand from the companion zone, and it's a 6 drop in Dimir. And when it enters, each player mills the top 4 cards of their library, and then you can put a creature with an even mana cost from among them onto the battlefield. But the restriction of it is that you can only have even costed cards in your deck. And I took that, and then I slammed Deadeye Navigator, which is one of my favorite cards ever. I mean, it's one of the original Commander Boogeyman cards, I feel,
yeah,
but it's also just a blink spell. And come on, if
yeah,
anyone knows me, I'm going to take the blink spell. And even if I'm playing Reanimator, I'm taking the blink spell.
yep.
And it was so fun. I mean, I was basically getting Garuda out, put the Deadeye right into play. And then if they tried to remove it or do anything about it, I would blink it. And then on the end step, I would blink it 3 times. And I was like, I don't even care if I get anything from any player's deck because I'm just milling my opponent out. And I was seeing my
Yeah,
opponent's whole deck. It was crazy. I had a lot of fun with it.
yeah. I've had a bunch of people ask me who have generally kind of gone pack one, pick one, Garuda, am I supposed to be companioning this? Ollie Beeks, one of the creators of Boston Cube Party, they actually messaged me the day before Cube for a Cause with a deck that they drafted, and essentially was like, "Is this supposed to be viable?" And my response to them was, "I don't care." Um, Gyruda is itself, it's a demon kraken. Like, of course that's going in. Maybe someone will make it work. Maybe it'll be a trap. Maybe someone will just put it in their deck without companioning it. That to me is ultimately not the like important part. The important part is that it's a legendary demon kraken. Like that's what we're working with here.
Yeah, who cares what the card says? I mean, look at the art. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's another interesting thing is tell me about the power level more about this cube because it felt like when I was playing that deck, just being able to get the free card from the companion zone, get this 6 drop that got me so much value was just so strong because Sure, there were aggro decks, like for example, pirate decks were able to go
Hmm.
fast, but at the same time, it didn't feel like this cube was high power by any means. It felt like it was more, like you said, it was very vibes focused.
Yeah.
My deck being able to like kind of go tall and reanimate and get some huge things into play was pretty powerful, and I ended up winning that draft.
Yeah. Power level of this cube is all over the place. I mean, as you mentioned, we've got Garuda, which is a companion, extremely strong mechanic. We've seen many of the companions, though not specifically Garuda, banned in many respective formats for among constructed players. You have some cards that are staples of other cubes or constructed environments. So there's some good cards here. But overall, the aesthetic experience of the cards, of the art, the card name, was just a way higher priority than everything else. That said, turns out Ragavan is a monkey pirate, and that would not be a fun experience for people in this cube who have sort of drafted the whimsical pirate theme cube. So definitely some key exclusions from a power level standpoint to kind of manage across the band, and definitely trying to skew much more to a interesting retail limited draft. Common and uncommons make up a lot of the cube. Certainly many powerful rares. This isn't a collated cube, it's not a set cube or anything like that. But the rarity, the power level is really just tied to how exciting a card is to open to see in a pack in the context of all these other things. And then don't make any extreme mistakes that you wouldn't be excited to talk about on a podcast.
My question is how good would Ragavan be? Because Ragavan looks pretty dumb when I put my sigiled starfish and O3 into play. That's what I'm saying. It blocks.
Yeah, that comes down on turn two. So
That's
if they're
true.
Ragavan on the play, I think Ragavan would be absolutely absurd in this cube. It is a power level outlier in many, many higher power level cubes. I can't really think of many other things that I explicitly decided I wasn't going to put in from a power level standpoint. And I have been shoring up the power level of certain things that have been underperforming when I get the opportunity to do so. There were sort of a handful of Final Fantasy cards that I put in the list that replaced definitely some lower power level cards. In the Upkeep New York Discord, which is the organization that helps organize Keep for a Cause that Scott Mertz runs and started, whenever there's a card that comes up and I'm not quite sure, I will sort of do the art picture post and be like, vibes for this. So I think recently we've started to get some of the official spoilers and reveals for Lorwyn.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm so excited for
and
that set.
I'm very excited for it, specifically for this cube, because we're going to get a huge influx of merfolk. Merfolk is something that I have been trying to push up in power level without just dumping in six lords and calling it a day and really putting the whole draft on rails. So I'm excited to see kind of what Merfolk Lorwyn brings to me. But one of the spoiled cards so far is Deceit. It is an elemental incarnation. It has abilities that are based on what colors of mana you put into it. This is the Dimir elemental incarnation. But the art on it, it's sort of like a big swampy anglerfish, crazy teeth. And I'm like, it's not inherently oceanic, naval, etc. But I sort of dropped the picture of that being like, vibes check on this in Perilous Seas, and people were like, yeah, that'll fit. And I did the same thing with a lot of the Final Fantasy cards because it's like Locke, one of the characters from Final Fantasy VI, Locke Treasure Hunter, is a guy opening a treasure chest, and it's like super on theme, mechanically on theme, but he also looks like he's a member of a boy band. So like, it's not exactly the vibes I'm going for, but there are quite a few shirtless pirates if you go through even the official Ixalan and other art. So ultimately, Locke made the cut, despite the fact that he's actually not a pirate, he's a rogue, which is an occasional annoyance for this cube. Thankfully, both of them go into the outlaw batch, but every once in a while, you are very sad when your pirates card don't pump your rogues.
Just Sharpie pirate on
No,
it.
I've never been one for the sort of Sharpie errata approach. I feel like I don't have the skill, expertise, or confidence to do it really well. Like, one of my favorite cubes of all time is Derek Allen's bar cube, which is, for people who don't know, kind of like the bar cube. Like, if you go on Cube Cobra and you search Bar Cube and you find it, like is that. And the key thing that he did is he Sharpie errataed a lot of token generation become lesson learn. So like the card foul play from one of the Innistrad sets destroys a creature with mana value 2 or less, and then investigates. Well, instead of investigating, it just says learn. And then he also sharpied a number of random vanilla things to just kind of be lessons. Like there's a 7 mana, 7/6 giant from Lorwyn that just has been given lesson. It's not a spell. It's just like the lesson is here is a giant. He did such an exceptional job at that in sort of choosing what cards, really thinking them through, putting them at the right power level. What are the types of cards that people are going to want in their lesson board? Like the whole thing is so beautiful and elegant that it has just made me so self-conscious about trying to do Sharpie errata for cards. I just allow myself to be a purist about it. But yes, it would be helpful if I could just sort of like be like, this one is a pirate.
Yep. I love the fact that you're going to your play group and like asking them, how does this vibes feel? Like that reminds me of at my game store, Games IRL in Avon, Connecticut. If you happen to be in the area, we're always looking for more cubers. My game store owner, Eric, he has his cutesy cube, and
Hmm.
every card has to be accepted by his wife as cute before it could go in the cube. So
I love that.
it reminded me a lot of that. I just love the community building that also has, like allowing
Yeah.
your friends and people in your community help you with actually picking the cards that go in. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
And another thing that I really liked that we mentioned a little bit is the kindred creature typal themes in here, because like you
Hmm.
mentioned, it didn't feel like they were super on rails or anything. Like I really liked pirates, for example, because pirates, while they do have some cards that care about the creature type pirates, a lot of them also care about other things. Like, for example, I really liked in the cube Captain Howler Sea Scourge, which
Hmm.
cares about when you discard cards. He buffs your creatures. He can be
Yeah.
card draw. Tell me about how you picked these typal creature type themes and not making them feel super parasitic, giving them other homes in the cube too.
Yeah. I mean, the true answer is I can take no credit for that. That is the good fortune of Wizards revisiting pirates in a couple of different settings and, making them relevant, right? So I think in the first iteration, the Ixalan pirates were the introduction of treasure. Treasure as a card type doesn't really exist before Ixalan. So the Ixalan pirates have always kind of cared about treasure. And then that got doubled down in Lost Caverns, which was already an artifact centric kind of set. And so they really pushed the pirates in Ixalan caring about artifacts and treasure and playing into that. Obviously, that makes a lot of sense. Pop culture, like pirates and treasure, go hand in hand. They are, almost, synonymous concepts. And then in Aether Drift, the next set of pirates really cared a lot about self discard, a very common red theme. You see it in red black, you see it in that set in red blue. And so it is a suite of mechanics that plays really well with the fact that the cube is sort of Grixis color restricted. It makes it so that there are a lot of cards that are excited to sort of play in that space as well. So I think those things I really don't get much credit for. I'd say like the Rakdos bent of pirates also are the ones that tend to care the most about the pirate type line. So those are the ones that are going to be sort of pirate lords, have advantages to attacking pirates, etc. And then as well in the Assassin's Creed set, the pirates from Assassin's Creed tended to care a lot about vehicles. There were these sort of nice set of sub themes between not just pirates caring about artifacts, but pirates caring specifically about vehicles, pirates caring about self discard, that kind of came up in a couple of ways that were just really fortuitous. And simply by throwing them together in the long list, it was easy to see, like, like these things are going to kind of work together. And then wanting very intentionally to see if I could find ways to cut across types to make more traditional decks, right? So there is certainly a typal theme of, as I mentioned, kind of the sea monster batch, as I'll kind of call it, octopuses, krakens, leviathans, and serpents. But it turns out that a lot of the cards that are kind of like my favorite versions of those cards have a lot of similarities. So there have been a lot of serpents specifically that play really well in spells matter strategies. So your Tolarian Terror, your Sailor's Bane, it's not a serpent, but Edimer Crab from Bloomborough. These are all kind of big monsters that have cost reduction based on the number of spells, instants and sorceries, or non-creature spells in your graveyard. And so there's an element of take a traditional archetype that is kind of the spell slinger, spells matter, fill up your graveyard, and then play one of these oversized, undercosted threats that you would see in a variety of other cubes. You might see them in peasant cubes, you might see them in kind of lower power cubes, etc. That fits really cleanly and naturally at home here. It is not a typal strategy. The fact that they say Serpent and Kraken is not relevant to each other. It sort of creates this coherent theme of a deck that cuts across the fact that it's typal. Like, no, it doesn't matter that it's typal, but it turns out to kind of be. So you get these sort of more traditional Grixis archetypes, right? Self discard, self mill, spell slinger that have their own interpretation and implementation in a cube like this that isn't necessarily like a given when you sort of are starting with like, okay, show me every Kraken.
Yeah. If you're going to include a self discard theme in your cube anyway, and you realize, oh, 30 of the cards that are in the self discard theme are pirates, just happen to be, you could throw in a pirate lord and it just adds a
Yeah,
little bit more texture to your cube and makes it a little bit more interesting. It makes people rethink things like, oh, there's Spellslinger and all these pirates work together. And I happen to have all these pirates. I might as well play this random pirate lord. And I think that's really fun.
yeah, me
And
too.
yeah. And speaking of Assassin's Creed,
Yeah,
you were telling me before that when you designed this cube, when we were talking about a cube for a
yeah,
cause, about the island from the
yeah,
Assassin's Creed set. I mean, it's just perfect. Looking at the art, it's literally a pirate ship going in the bay.
yeah, absolutely. Like when people see that island, they're like, wow, this is perfect. I'm like, I know, it's why I made the cube in paper. Is like, as I think everyone who designs cubes from time to time does, like sometimes you have an idea and you build a long list and you're like, hey, this like could be good, this could be fun, whatever. I'm gonna let it stew on Cube Cobra. I'm gonna think about it from time to time, but like I'm not gonna rush out and buy the cards because like, who knows if this is a thing that I actually want to come back to. But the moment I saw that island, I'm like, well, I'm gonna have to build this in paper. It was just too perfect. It was just such a clean, beautiful aesthetic experience. I got incredibly lucky that within a year, the Final Fantasy set provided me the next perfect basic for my Desert Cube. One of the full art basics in the Final Fantasy set is from Final Fantasy V, a game I have not played, so I don't know the context, but the location is described as the ship's graveyard. And it's like, what else are you going to do? Like, this is so perfect. It was incredibly lucky. Of all the cards that Final Fantasy released for all the cubes that I have, like, that swamp was the best thing that happened for me. So that was like truly, truly lovely. Right now, we're just on a mountain that I like. We don't have too many nautical mountains quite yet. Hopefully, one day. A couple of people have naggingly tried to get me to use the SpongeBob under the sea mountain, which does not pass the vibes check.
It's cool because
Yeah,
I know that there's a lot of stigma in the community, the cube community around universes beyond, and oh, the vibes, does it fit into my magic the way that I want it to? But when you're recontextualizing the environment so much, and instead of it being, let's say, a more overall fantasy vibe, when you're pulling cards from many different areas of magic, when you're going so deep into the ocean and the nautical and the seas, I feel like these universes beyond like Assassin's Creed, like the Final Fantasy, like you were mentioning, other cards that we'll get in the future, if they just fit the vibe of the exact thing that you're going for, whether it be a horror cube, an ocean themed cube, a wild wasteland cube, if you wanted to do something with Fallout cards, those cards feel like they just add so much to a cube.
yeah. I mean, I think the short answer is like some cubes are better fits for universes beyond than others, and some universes beyond sets are better fits for certain cubes than others. As you said, I'm not shying away from perfect vibes for this cube based on universes beyond or not. I kind of make a game time decision on each thing. Like I've looked at As I said, as we talked about earlier, the Jaws secret lair just dropped. So there's literally like this crazy shark.
That card's
Um,
sick.
yeah, the card is sick. I can't square in my mind it being mono red. And I think that is the most important thing that is going to keep it out of this cube specifically, is that it is like a mono red artifacts matter card. And when it gets reinterpreted in universes within, which I think has kind of like already been said is going to happen, unless that is somehow incredibly nautical, which I do not expect, I don't think I'm going to be adding the card here. However, it does have me wondering if I need to change my abrade art to the art of Roy Scheider throwing a gas tank into the shark's mouth. Iconic scene from the film. The aesthetic concerns come first. I'm looking for art, card name, etc. that need to meet that threshold. I have made some concessions within universe as well. I think Fiery Temper is a good example of that. It's not a clean card for Perilous Seas vibes. The art isn't particularly resonant. It's not nautical. I'm using the original art because the art of a bunch of angels setting people on fire is like even less relevant and resonant. It plays well mechanically with blue-red discard pirates. It's a well-known beloved magic card. But for example, the same grace will not be extended to any of the Spider-Man cards with Mayhem, which would be great fits mechanically, but are just nowhere close to the appropriate vibes threshold. As I mentioned, when I think something is on the edge, I will ask people who have played the cube, who care about it, who think it's fun, like, hey, do you think I should be doing this? And I take seriously kind of their thoughts. And, I have my own strong opinions as well.
Norman Osborn and the Ultimate Green Goblin, they don't feel like they belong in the ocean.
Nope. I don't know.
What about
Nor just
Fleam? What
I
about
was gonna
Fleam?
say this is
Give me
this is now
Fleam.
if we have learned anything from Wizards of the Coast in the last year, well, 2 years, it is not long before Fleem is going to be wearing a pirate hat. We've got cowboy hat, fibble thip. We've gotten 3 loots in 2 years. Like the Fleems will continue until morale improves. I think Tiny Bones was kind of the same thing, though I really do love Tiny Bones. I think there is something wonderful about these little adopted mascots that people kind of love, but I think Tiny Bones is probably a little bit closer to the loot intentional design than the truly adopted by the community. But I do love a Tiny Bones.
Yeah. And that brings up an interesting question I had for you is tell me about the process of updating this cube over time. Like, how do you pick cards to go into it? And another question is like, eventually I'm sure we will get a set that's like fully ocean themed. I don't think that we've ever really had like a fully ocean themed set. We've had desert themed sets, we've had ice themed sets, snow themed sets, but what would happen if they released 300 cards that were related to the ocean and were just perfect for the cube? How would you make changes at that point?
I have a lot of work to do. I mean, I think is like obviously the very short answer. I would probably get my mountain, which I would be
Probably.
excited about. I would probably get a nice full art mountain that I'd be comfortable to use. I think a set would first, I think like there's a lot of fat to trim in the list right now. Filling out the cards and the themes, like it's not 100% perfect. There's definitely stuff that I'd be happy to trim and would be trimmed over time. I'd mostly have a lot of work to do. I like designing weird cubes that give me sort of different lenses through which to view sets. Every release, I'm excited to see what colorless cards get released because the Devoid Cube gives me this huge outlet to be excited about colorless cards. The Evergreen Peasant Cube that we talked about was one of my favorite ways through which to view uncommons. Like, there have been so many genuinely wonderful uncommons that do not have any non-evergreen rules text on them that have been released in the last 2 years. There's some sets that are amazing for them. Edge of Eternities, actually, like if you go through and look at a lot of the uncommons in that set, you will see a treasure trove of really elegant, beautiful designs that don't have any set keywords. And I was pretty much entirely unimpressed with the set keywords on the uncommons for those sets anyway. So it really kind of like worked out quite well. So this is just another one of those narrow lenses. I don't have to worry about like, oh wow, this card that was printed is super pushed or expensive or whatever. For this cube, it's either going to meet the vibes or it doesn't. And for all that we will potentially eventually get a Waterworld set or whatever, like there's a set like Edge of Eternities where I can like take one look at it and be like, I have no updates to make for this cube. I will have updates to make for other cubes. For every 0 cards I'm going to get, I will get a Tezzeret Cruel Captain for the Devoid Cube, which is this like absolutely absurd banger of a card. Yeah.
I mean, that's awesome. Tezzeret Cruel Captain. He's a captain. He can go into this cube, right?
Uh, well, we'll see. We'll have to wait for a Secret Lair printing from him where Chris Ron just puts, sailor's hats on all of the iconic cards that he has done art for.
True. And one thing that's also interesting about this cube that I didn't even notice when we were at Cube for a Cause is it's not color balanced. There's 170 blue cards, 80 black, 84 red cards. We should say it's a 432 card cube. You draft 3 packs of 18.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice that it was so color imbalanced.
Yeah, there's twice as many blue cards, twice as red cards or black cards. So essentially, black and red combined is about equal to the blue cards. And same on the basic lands. So there's twice as many islands as there are, either swamps or mountains. It is probably not too surprising, given that blue is kind of the color of water in Magic, that when I went through the process of creating my long list of all the cards that are on theme, on vibes, etc., I ended up with way more blue cards than others because that's just kind of like where the core is. The pirates, the sea monsters, the merfolk, they pop up in other places from time to time, but by and large, like they tend to be a lot of blue cards. And so my options are down the cards in the list to meet, some intention of spreadsheet aesthetics, make compromises on lower vibes threshold cards in other colors, or just let color imbalance reign, prioritize the vibes. As anyone who's been listening so far can guess, I chose the latter. And so there's a little bit of spreadsheet aesthetics because that is unfortunately how my brain works. I love the structure of that. It's pretty close to the 2-to-1, whatever. It did not matter to me that it was like very imbalanced.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I didn't even notice when we were playing. It just was like, oh, I'm seeing more blue cards and I put them in the deck. It's not like it was some conscious thing that I'd even really thought about while we were playing. It's interesting that I feel like a lot of cube designers, and I do it too. I mean, I'm hugely do it like 50 of every color or 55 or whatever. And really, the players don't notice. They just see what's open and they take cards.
Yeah, and a lot of people will be in blue. I think one of the things, you sort of talked about is the aggro pirates deck. I haven't seen like a pure Rakdos version of it yet, and my hypothesis is it might be really, really, really strong, but it does come with sort of some added risk of there are half as many mountains and swamps as there's half as many black and red cards. Like you might have to make some really hard choices, especially given the desert element of it. I'm interested to see kind of that deck come together. I've seen a lot of like full Grixis pirates, but never a really dedicated low to the ground Rakdos build. So one day we'll see if that happens.
Yeah. And before we get into a pack one, pick one here, I just had to ask you one thing. So
yeah,
tell me about Storm in the cube. Is the only WinCon Crow Storm?
Yeah. So why Storm in the cube is a great and fair question. Storm is in the cube because in the very first draft of the cube, one of the players who's local to our playgroup took an early 1,000-Year Storm and decided to build Storm. He had a 1,000-Year Storm and a Stormkiln Artist. In one of the games we played in that first draft, he was able to get to a place where he cast Fiery Temper with 6 copies to kill me from 18 in one turn. And I loved that. And so I decided to look deeper into the pool and be like, is there Storm? And the short answer is like, no, not really. It's probably a bit of a trap. But the idea of storms as it relates to sailing and particularly the Pirates of the Caribbean vibe, like that idea is resonant. Like, I remember growing up, there's a huge big budget movie called The Perfect Storm, which is about like a tornado that meets a hurricane and there's a little fishing boat out in it and, how they heroically survive. And so like the idea of storms, I think fits into the place, as does the card High Tide. And I think like Crow Storm kind of does as well, somehow oddly. So I'm happy to have a little kind of 3 to 4 card package that, if someone puts together success 1 out of 20 drafts, like that'll be a success for me. And if most of the time it is something that people read and chuckle and throw in their sideboard, like that will be acceptable too.
I'm a big fan of Fair Storm. Like a lot of my cubes, I have like an Empty the Warrens, I have a Chatterstorm. You just like play a couple things and then you get a few crows. I had that on my peasant cube for a long time. And it was pretty powerful. I mean, like turn 5, you get like 3/1/2s with flying. What does the opponent do about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a certainly like fine enough card. I think that there are ways where you can kind of like chain a bunch of spells together. I think like treasures help to kind of give you opportunities to kind of like cast multiple spells in a turn. So, for example, you have the big score, unexpected windfall, discard a card, draw 2 cards, make 2 treasures. And so you have some of these things that will do some filtering for you, that will give you back some mana. I think you can kind of like probably throw a bunch of things together with that and take a turn where you make a couple of crows. And like maybe that'll be good enough, or maybe it won't, and you'll side it out. Ollie, when they ask me about Garuda, I kind of don't care. Um, there are some people who have really kind of embraced the idea that like sometimes a card goes into a cube for people to see it in the pack and have a reaction to it. Listening to some friends talk about their experience drafting the Tressorhorn Gardens at Capital Cube Chance recently, it is an extremely high power Grixis environment. It is all of the best cards. It has power in it. And then there's Lord of Tressorhorn in the draftable pool. It is not there to be played maybe by some fun Chivo or whatever, but the card is not strong in the context of the other cards in that cube. It is there for people to see it and go, cute. And so is Crowstorm a little bit, and High Tide. More High Tide than Crowstorm. But like I've had people like, what am I supposed to do with this? I'm like, I don't know. I have no intentions. I have only put things in front of you for you to decide what to do with. And the very first draft of it, someone decided to play Storm. And so I thought, you know what? Let's reward that impulse by leading you down the wrong path.
I love it. Like I pulled out for my bulk a Dragon Storm, and
Yeah.
I was like, is this good in Changeling Cube? No, but I think I'm gonna put it in because it's funny enough.
Yeah.
You've inspired me to fully do it. I'm gonna do it. And let's jump
Yeah.
into a pack one, pick one here. We got an
That sounds
18
great.
card pack. So I'll
Oh,
read it
oh
off
boy.
here. We got Pirate's Cutlass, 3 mana colorless equipment, equip 2. Equip creature gets +2/+1. When it enters, attach it to a pirate you control. I just cut this from Changeling Cube, but it's a very cool card. 1 black, stab. Target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. Feed the Serpent, 2 black, black, instant. Exile target creature, Planeswalker, mountain. Cosima, God of the Voyage. I think this card's going to have more reading than all the other cards in the cube combined. Like, here, let's do this. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may exile Cosima. If you do, it gains whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control. If Cosima is exiled, you may put a Voyage counter on it. If you don't, return Cosima to the battlefield with X1/1 counters on it and draw X cards, where X is the number of Voyage counters on it. But you can also play as a vehicle on the other side. And 1 in a blue for a 3/3. Whenever a vehicle you control deals combat damage to a player, that player exiles that many cards from the top of their library. You may play land cards from among those cards for as long as they remain exiled through 1. Whew. And it's also 2 in a blue for a 2/4. That card's got some words, but I like it. We got Dead Weight, black enchantment, -2/-2, enchanted creature. Vance's Blasting Cannons, 3 in a red. Move your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. If it's a non-land, you may cast it. When you cast your 3rd spell, it transforms into a land that you can pay 2 in a red to deal 3 damage to a creature or player. Also taps for a red. We got Warkite Marauder, 1 in a blue, 2/1 flyer. When it attacks, you can make a creature an opponent controls an 0/1 and lose all abilities. Mary Reed and Anne Bonny, 1 blue red, 3/3 haste. It loots. And whenever you discard an island, pirate, or vehicle, you create a tap treasure. Now we're storming off with that card. I like it. We got Intimidation Tactics, black, cycling, 3. Target opponent reveals their hand. You choose an artifact or creature from it and exile that card. Tide Shaper, blue 1/1, kicker 1. When it enters, if it was kicked, you turn one of their lands into an island, and it gets +1/+1 if an opponent controls an island. Reaches Eager Pillager, 2 in a red, 3/3 first strike. Whenever a pirate you control attacks, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. You get a treasure. You can make something unblockable, or you can exile the top card of your library and play it. Dead Drop, 9 in a black. Sorcery, delve, target player sacrifice 2 creatures. An island, Ash Barrens, which land them with basic land cycling. Brackish Blunder, 1 in a blue. Instant, return target creature to its owner's hand. If it was tapped, create a map. Gutless Plunder, 2 in a black. Death Touch, 2/2. Raid, so if you attacked, when it enters, you look at the top three cards of your library, put one of them on top of your library, rest of the grave. And then finally, Fearless Swashbuckler. One blue red, haste, 3/3 vehicles in control of haste. Whenever you attack, if a pirate and a vehicle attack this combat, draw three cards and discard two. Ooh, 18 card pack. That's a lot of reading here.
It's a lot of reading.
But it's a cool pack. What do you think about this pack?
I think there are a couple of cards that I would say are sort of in the strongest tier of potential power outliers, and then a lot of kind of workhorses. What are you most excited about in this pack?
Let's see here. What am I most excited about? A couple cards that stand out to me are Intimidation Tactics. It's a great Thoughtseize effect that exiles in a cube that there's so much graveyard. So
Mm.
also has cycling, fills your graveyard for things that care about that. So that seems great. Another one that's pretty strong that I like is just good removal, like stab, -2,
Hmm.
-2. Also, another one is just Ash Barrens and a Desert Cube. I mean, it's a good land. So I'm probably on Intimidation Tactics, but I could definitely see a few pretty strong cards here, like Breaches. That's just great card advantage and does a lot. Or if I wanted to take a blue red card, the Mary Reed sounds great, and Cosima draws a lot of cards. So a lot going on here, but there's some good stuff.
Yeah, I think for me, there are kind of three standout cards in this pack, and you just mentioned them at the kind of tail end. Cosima, God of the Voyage, I think is just a very strong card advantage engine. It is a little bit slow, though the Omen Keel is also a powerful spell, which is the backside of Cosima, and a very powerful vehicle that can sort of help ramp and smooth and that sort of thing. I think Breaches is incredible. I have played Breaches in like non-pirate cubes where it just was there to make treasures and every once in a while sort of exile. I think we would see much more of Breaches if the red 3-drop spot was not the most powerful spot in cube these days.
Oh
Um,
my gosh, you're right.
far and away. And then Mary Reed and Anne Bonny, I think, is secretly just absolutely incredible. 3 mana, 3/3 with haste that is a looter is already just like from a stats perspective and a value perspective extraordinarily high. And the fact that it will give you treasures if you discard islands, pirates, or vehicles means that like a very significant portion of your deck is going to generate treasures. If I were newer to a Desert Cube and I was a little bit more hesitant to go directly into two colors, even though this is only Grixis, I think I'd probably be on Breaches and looking to build around the idea of pirates because Breaches says whenever a pirate, not whenever Breaches. So if you play Breaches on turn 3 and next turn attack with three pirates, you get all three of Breaches' abilities. It is
Or if you play
extremely strong.
Breaches on turn 3 with a pirate on turn 2, you can immediately trigger
Yeah,
too.
immediately get one trigger. It's wildly powerful, but I'm probably on Mary Reed and Bonnie. It's a very powerful card.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true when it's only a three-color cube, like with my Bant cube. Very often
Mm,
people end up in two or one color, but if you end up in three-color, there's plenty of fixing. So taking a
yeah.
two-color card, I feel like is not as crazy in a color restricted cube than a five-color cube.
It's not as crazy, though the desert element of it does like ramp up a little bit of the risk. I will say though that most of the players who have played this cube and drafted a couple of times have all sort of said that it is a very good, to kind of paraphrase them, baby's first desert cube. The lands are pretty plentiful and they're pretty powerful. The land base has, a shock fetch component, multiple typed duels, so that fetches can kind of fix your mana quite well. So there is a lot of not necessarily hand holding, but the fact that there are fewer colors means that any land that you see is that much more likely to actually be a thing that can let you cast your spells. There's a pretty healthy amount of them, an average of about 19 lands per player. And just like high quality fixing lands makes it so that people always feel like there was tension to the desert, but I don't think I've ever seen anyone be like, oh, I train wrecked and couldn't find lands, which obviously is the worst case scenario for someone drafting in a desert cube. So I think given all of those things, I'm probably on Mary and Anne.
I'm tempted to build a desert cube that has like 50 lands in it, and just players have to like go hard on lands, and it's like you can have a non-functional deck. I don't know. I'd be curious to see what it would look like.
8-person draft with 50 lands, so an average of 6 lands per player.
maybe not 50, but make it that it's like tough to get. Like you have to like prioritize
Yeah.
that.
Well, that
That'd
was
be
like the very, very first desert cube, the one that existed back on Cube Tutor. That was, I think, the very first implementation of this. The idea of hostility to players was like deeply ingrained in the ethos of what the cube was just like every card is terrible, every land is terrible, everything has a downside. Like, this is going to be an unpleasant slog through the desert with me. And I think like some people they like to amp up as much as possible the tension in taking a land and the quality of lands in a cube. The idea of are you really going to pass a basic? Like every other land is garbage. It comes in tapped and it blows itself up and it deals you damage. Like you're not going to take the basic land in this pack. Some people really like that level of hostility. I am not that person, particularly as it comes to sort of this cube. I think the desert element sort of hits a thematic note of kind of, setting your course and navigation and things that I can feel meet or work with the idea of a voyage and sailing and that sort of a thing. I don't think it's too stretched of a metaphor. I don't want people to draft non-functional decks. So a little bit less tense, I think, than even your average desert cube.
it's Desert Cube by vibes, not Desert Cube by make the players upset.
Exactly.
And thank you so much for coming on, Dan. And it's been great talking with you. I mean, anything you want to
Yeah.
say here before we wrap up?
No, it's been wonderful chatting, and yeah, I'm excited to hopefully bring this cube to more places, whether that's formally as part of an event or, just figuring out how heavy I'm gonna let my backpack be when it comes to something like shoebox, when there's only gonna be so many hours in the day and so many people carrying around cubes. So, I would expect to see it in many upcoming spaces. Certainly anytime I show up somewhere, I will think about whether or not it makes sense to bring it.
Pirates of the Caribbean will be coming to you.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I hear that might be the case, so everyone buckle up, because they might be trying to make another one of those things, and they did not increase in quality over time. Having just watched all of them, can confirm. Ooh,
All downhill.
someone's going to need to cast Rise Again on Johnny Depp to get him back into that role.
Well, everyone, thank you so much for listening. Please like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. I always appreciate it. And like I mentioned before, ConnectiCube's going to be happening next year. So it'll be in the Discord description and Games IRL. If you happen to be in Avon, Connecticut or that area, Connecticut, reach out to me. We're always looking for more cubers. And I hope you have a great day and enjoy.